Chapter 3393. A Good Romance. BQG 6. Si Ling Han walked up to Jiyu Xiangming and said lightly. Elder Baby had already gone to support Snow Summoner, so suppressing 2 blood transformation realm Imperial Guards was naturally a piece of cake. Ling Han, how dare you beat up the Imperial Guards? You're courting death. Jiyu Xiangming said through gritted teeth. Ling Han chuckled and pulled Jiyu Xiangming out from the wall. Ah! Jiyu Xiangming screamed. He had broken many bones. It was fine if he didn't move, but once he did, the broken bones pierced into his flesh. The pain made him break out in a cold sweat, and he screamed uncontrollably. You're a big man. You can't take this little injury. Ling Han smiled and casually threw him to the ground. He looked down at him condescendingly. You came here so early in the morning. Are you attending a funeral? Your mouth is too vicious. Jiyu Xiangming couldn't imagine that a martial art genius who had 2 grandmaster titles and was known as the second in Hongtian steps could speak so viciously. Ling Han, how dare you beat up the Imperial Guards, he shouted. Stop, stop, stop. You've already said it once. Don't you find it annoying? Ling Han interrupted him. So what if they're the Imperial Guards? Can't I beat them? Jiyu Xiangming was dumbfounded. Are you kidding me? Do you know what the Imperial Guards represent? The Emperor's close officials. What's the difference between beating up the Imperial Guards and humiliating the Emperor? This was clearly courting death, but Ling Han looked like he didn't care at all. It was as if he had accidentally stepped on an ant and didn't need to take it to heart. He was going crazy. This was completely different from what he had imagined. In his opinion, given the pressure Ling Han was under, he must be close to a mental breakdown. As long as he saw Jiyu Xiangming coming over, he would definitely cry. How could this be? How could this be? Don't pretend to be dead and don't talk nonsense. Why are you disturbing my cultivation? Ling Han asked. I'm disturbing your cultivation. Jiyu Xiangming was really about to cry. He had been ordered to escort Ling Han. He didn't care if he was cultivating or not. However, he had encountered this fierce man who didn't play by the rules. He was depressed. I am under the orders of the various lords to escort you, he said through gritted teeth. Before he could finish his sentence, he was slapped. However, this time, it was not Ling Han who slapped him. It was Third Baby. Escorting my father? Do you want to die? Third Baby said coldly. Yeah. Fourth Baby put his hands on his hips. That's right. Fifth Baby was not to be outdone. Jiyu Xiangming felt that he had no face to see others in the future. His face was messed up by the milk babies, but he was even slapped by a little girl. It was so shameful. Ling Han laughed and said, Are you finally going to make a decision? He thought about it and said, All right, let's go take a look. Lead the way. Ling Han picked up Jiyu Xiangming. He strode forward and saw that near the door, there were 2 Imperial Guards who had been planted upside down in the ground. Their heads were stuck in the soil, up to their necks. Beside them was the smiling eldest child, who looked like he was admiring a masterpiece. Don't suffocate them to death, Ling Han reminded him. It's okay. They'll be pulled out regularly to breathe, said the eldest child. Okay. Ling Han nodded. Jiyu Xiangming was stunned. You just said okay and didn't even try to persuade them? Lunatics, everyone here was a lunatic. He was extremely regretful. He had suffered a great loss this time. How could he have expected that Ling Han and his milk babies would be so lawless? Ling Han asked 6th Baby to follow him. If his plan was revealed, he would forcefully break out of the encirclement and enter the spirit-nourishing gourd so that 6th Baby could take him away. Before he took this step, he also wanted to try his best to persuade them. Ling Han carried Jiyu Xiangming and walked towards the palace. He used his body movement technique. At twice the speed of sound, how long would it take to reach the palace? When he arrived, he slowed down. The forbidden area of the palace. Who dares to trespass? Immediately, an Imperial Guard stepped forward and asked. Ling Han smiled and said, I'm Ling Han. I'm here on orders. Here, this is your Captain Jiyu. Captain. Captain Jiyu? After seeing Jiyu Xiangming clearly, The Imperial Guard couldn't help but be shocked. Oh my god, what's going on? Why is our Captain Jiyu so badly injured? Jiyu Xiangming was just about to expose Ling Han's evil deeds when he heard Ling Han speak first. Your Captain Jiyu encountered the Demon Clan on the way and was seriously injured. Demon Clan? You were the one who beat him up. Jiyu Xiangming shouted in his heart. But when he saw Ling Han's smiling face, he couldn't help but feel a chill in his heart. He had an indescribable fear that Ling Han might really kill him. Therefore, he didn't dare to say a word. He could only wait until he met the Grand Elder to talk about this grievance. Therefore, when the Imperial Guard looked over with an inquiring gaze, he nodded and agreed with Ling Han's words. The Imperial Guard let them go. Ling Han headed for the conference hall. On the way, he would naturally encounter other Imperial Guards, but they were all dismissed by him with the same excuse, which also made Jiyu Xiangming nod so much that even he himself almost believed that Ling Han was actually wounded by the demon race. However, he finally arrived at the conference hall. Ling Han strode in and entered. The hall was very lively today, and many people were seated. The Grand Elder, Yang Bai, sat in the seat of honor, while Senior Grand Tutor Hong and the 4 marshals sat below. One could guess their identities just by looking at their full armor and their imposing manner. There was also the 3rd Imperial Prince, the 6th Imperial Prince, and the 7th Imperial Prince, whom Ling Han recognized. In addition, there was a large number of Imperial Princes that Ling Han did not recognize. Because they were all wearing the same attire, it was easy to guess their identities. Before Chen Fengyang went into seclusion, he had entrusted the affairs of the country to Yang Bai. Therefore, even though several important princes had arrived, Yang Bai still sat in the seat of honor. Greetings, my lords. Ling Han threw Jiyu Xiangming to the ground and cupped his fists in greeting. Pa. Jiyu Xiangming fell hard on the ground. He already had a dozen or so heads broken, and now he was even more injured, causing him to cry out loudly. Senior Grand Tutor Hong flew into a rage. He immediately stood up and shouted, Ling Han, how dare you? You even dared to injure the Imperial Guards. Don't think that you can disregard His Majesty just because you've made some small achievement. You really are audacious. Chen Jingyue said coldly. Ignorant fool, you're courting death. Chen Shengjie snorted as well. These princes had all suffered at Ling Han's hands before. Now that they finally had the chance, they naturally began to mock and ridicule him. Ling Han smiled slightly and said, I encountered the Demon Clan on the way here. In order to protect me, Captain Jiyu was unfortunately severely injured. I am very grateful. Damn, you're addicted. Jiyu Xiangming hurriedly endured the pain and said, It's not like that. This is clearly the case. He screamed in agony as he was kicked out of the main hall by Ling Han. Ling Han. Senior Grand Tutor Hong's beard and hair moved. This brat was too arrogant. Of course he dared to commit violence in front of him. Ling Han spread his hands and said, My lords, didn't you come to me to discuss the Demon Clan? In the face of the Demon Clan's threat, do you still need to care about such a small matter? Lord Hong, don't be so careless. F***ck. Hearing this, Jiyu Xiangming fainted from anger. It was more refreshing to read on the phone. Chapter 3394. BQG 6. CC BQG 6. CCUVE already F***king started a fight in the meeting hall, and you say it so casually. Senior Tutor Hong was just about to speak when he saw the 7th Prince stretch out his hand. Indeed, the threat of the demon race is imminent. Let's talk business first. Just as he was about to speak, the 7th Imperial Prince extended his hand and said, Indeed, the threat of the demonic beasts is imminent. Let's talk business first. In his eyes, Jiyu Xiangming was no different from an ant. So what if Ling Han had kicked and beaten him? Let's talk business first. In his eyes, people like Jiyu Xiangming were naturally no different from ants. So what if Ling Han kicked and beat him? With the invasion of the demonic beasts, he was not worth mentioning. In his eyes, Jiyu Xiangming was no different from an ant. So what if Ling Han had kicked and beaten him? In the face of the demon race's invasion, he was not worth mentioning. Seeing the 4 commanders and the 7th Prince like this, Senior Tutor Hong felt like vomiting blood. How could this be? Ling Han, you've seen the threat of the demon race, the third prince said. He, too, was not in the mood to care about a puny imperial guard getting beaten up. What do you think we should do? Ling Han smiled. Of course, there's only one word. Fight. Fight. Senior tutor Hong laughed coldly. Do you know how powerful the demon race is? Do you know how many casualties there will be if a war breaks out? Do you know how many innocent people will be sacrificed if our country is conquered? Ling Han looked disdainfully at Grand Tutor Hong and said, then according to Lord Hong's meaning, if I'm stronger than you and I want to beat your son, you'll obediently hand over your son for me to beat. Why are you talking about me out of the blue? Senior Tutor Hong was stunned. It had to be said that what he wanted to express was the same as what Ling Han had asked him. Should one accept their fate just because they were weak? Come, Lord Hong, let's spar. After I beat you down, you must remember that when I tell you to go east, you cannot go west. Ling Han hooked his finger at Senior Tutor Hong. Senior Tutor Hong was so angry that his chest heaved. He waved his sleeves and sat down. I don't want to lower myself to your level. I don't dare. Ling Han smiled. I'm a blood transformation realm cultivator, and I'm not afraid of a fight. Lord Hong, you're too cowardly. No wonder you said those words. I know you're a coward, all right? You. Senior Tutor Hong stood up again. What was this? His eyes were spitting fire. Do you want to die? Although Ling Han was extremely monstrous, he was still a five-vein existence. He was not someone that Ling Han could contend with. All right, all right. Yang Bai came out to smooth things over. We're all ministers of the palace, and we're facing a formidable enemy. Let's not cause internal strife. Lord Yang is indeed wise, Ling Han immediately said. F***CK, are you saying that I'm being unreasonable? Senior Grand Tutor Hong was going crazy again. This young man always had a way to provoke his anger. Ling Han, the demon race only wants you. But you're afraid of death. Are you willing to let the Empire's soldiers bleed and sacrifice their lives for your personal gain? Chen Jingye couldn't help interjecting. Actually, he did not have much of a say in this kind of situation, but how could he be willing to see Ling Han speak with assurance and composure and lead the way? Ling Han laughed heartily. Of course, humans are afraid of death. That's why we cultivate and make ourselves stronger so that we can control our own destiny. But in the face of some things, we have to do it even if we're afraid of death. 89th Highness, if the demon race succeeds this time, they will definitely think that our race is easy to bully. Next time they want you, I wonder if you'll be willing to step forward. Chen Jingye had just opened his mouth but was immediately interrupted by Ling Han. Even if you have this kind of awareness, what if the demon race wants someone else? Ling Han continued. Then we should let the demon race have whatever they want. Some things cannot be compromised from the start. Things like bottom lines and principles cannot be shaken once they've been decided. Also, why was our army established in the first place? Is it so that they won't be sacrificed? Then countless soldiers who died on the battlefield will have to go to the underworld with grievances. A warrior's duty is to protect their citizens. Stain the battlefield with blood, and die without regret. Clap, clap, clap. General Varja suddenly applauded. Well said, well said. When I lead the army, I look down on cowards the most. If they're afraid of fighting, bloodshed, and death, what kind of soldiers are they? The Shenyuan army is not afraid of a battle, General Shenyuan said lightly. The Eclipse Moon army is not afraid of a battle, General Eclipse Moon said calmly. The Heaven Traversing army is not afraid of a battle either. General Eclipse Moon was full of arrogance. The four marshals had all expressed that they were not afraid of a battle. Senior Tutor Hong was anxious. He had been on the run for so many days, and Ling Han had turned the tables with just a few words. Ahem. The third prince cleared his throat. Let me talk about the information I've gathered. It's about the demon army. When everyone heard this, they were all stunned. The demon race has a total of 3 armies. They are the Mighty Tiger Army, the Bloodshark Army, and the Red Eagle Army. The third prince began to speak and analyzed. The commander of the Mighty Tiger Army is the biological father of Hu Sihai, who came to the imperial capital previously. His name is Hu Zhanping. According to the information I received, Hu Zhanping's cultivation is in the mystic-seeking realm. The mighty tiger army is made up of 6 camps: tiger, wolf, lion, leopard, elephant, and goat. Each camp has 10,000 people. The leader of the camp is called the deputy general, and his cultivation is in the enlightening realm. As for the soldiers of the camp, most of them are in the extreme bone realm. The captains are in the inscription realm, and the newly added soldiers are in the blood transformation realm. After listening to his introduction of the mighty tiger army, the entire meeting hall became silent. The 4th Grandmaster was previously full of confidence and was not afraid of a battle. But now, he had suffered a serious blow. With their cultivation, if they went to the demon race, they would not be able to become deputy generals, let alone generals. They would only be able to be squad leaders. And this was just one mighty tiger army. How to fight? Looking for death. The Blood Shark army and the Red Eagle army's strength is similar to the mighty tiger army. It's just that the Blood Shark army is made up of aquatic demons, while the Red Eagle army is made up of flying demons, the 3rd prince continued. The entire place was silent. It would have been better if the demon race's strength had not been mentioned. Once he said it, it made people tremble. Just the mystic-seeking realm alone had 3 people. Sea, land, and air were all crushed. How could they fight? The most terrifying was the Air Force. They could throw attacks from the sky, and the people on the ground could not hit them at all. They could only defend passively. There was no chance of winning. Airships. The fact that Hidden Tiger City had been flattened by the beast tide was already a clear indication of the problem. Airships without much flexibility would probably crash if they encountered bird-type demons. It could be said that as long as the demon race launched an attack, the Empire's army would not be able to withstand a single blow. If the difference in strength was not large, they could still fight. But how could they fight in this situation? It was completely suicidal. No wonder the demon race dared to send an envoy to make Shenbei country submit. The difference in overall strength between the two sides was terrifying. We can't fight. The 4th prince shook his head. Then, the 5th prince, the 6th prince, the 7th prince, and the others all shook their heads slowly. As long as one was not an idiot, they would know that starting a war would mean the destruction of the country. Reading on the phone is more refreshing. Chapter 3396. A Good Romance. BQG 6. Sisitha 7th Prince pondered and said, "If father can't come out in time, we will definitely lose this war. However, we cannot risk our lives to fight. Otherwise, the human race will really perish. Therefore, we need to preserve our strength." Ling Han was surprised. What did he mean by that? When the war starts, you will leave with me. I have already made some arrangements and can rise in this chaotic world. The 7th prince continued. You mean to become a deserter? Ling Han widened his eyes and looked at the 7th prince without saying a word. The 7th prince smiled. Those who achieve great things don't bother with trifles. I don't want to see the people being plunged into misery and suffering, but if it is unavoidable, I cannot continue to fight even though I know I will die. Ling Han instantly understood. This 7th prince was ambitious and capable. However, he was not a benevolent emperor, but a ruthless one. A general's success was built on the bones of tens of thousands. He only cared about his own imperial ambitions. As for how many sacrifices he would have to make on this road, he didn't care at all. To work or cooperate with such a person, one had to be very careful. Who knew if one would suddenly be betrayed? In the 7th prince's eyes, people were arranged according to their value. If one had no value, one would be sacrificed or sacrificed for a greater value. At this moment, Ling Han decided to keep his distance from the 7th prince. Otherwise, he might really be tricked one day. I believe the situation won't deteriorate to such a degree, he said. Optimism is good, but blindly optimism can kill oneself. The 7th prince patted Ling Han's shoulder. Think about it. I still look forward to cooperating with you and working together for a great cause. Ling Han smiled. He didn't want to fall out with the 7th prince. It was just that it was impossible for him to cooperate with the 7th prince on a deeper level. He now felt that the seventh prince was more and more terrifying. If he got too close to him, he might be dragged down with him. Those who walked different paths could not work together. I will go back first. Think about it. The seventh prince turned and left. He had asked Ling Han to think twice. This meant that he still thought highly of Ling Han. Unfortunately, Ling Han had seen through his ruthless nature. Ling Han smiled and watched the seventh prince leave. Right now, he was under house arrest. Unrelated people couldn't come and see him. Even the optical computer couldn't connect to the internet. It could be said that he had completely lost contact with the outside world. Only important people like the seventh prince could enter this place. If I really want to break out, can you stop me? Ling Han shook his head. Days passed and the atmosphere in the capital grew tenser by the day. The deadline given by the demon race was getting closer and closer, but those important figures had yet to make a final decision, and the Saint Emperor was still in seclusion. If the demon race army pressed down on their borders, how were they going to resist? The more cowardly people were already preparing to move their families, but the world was so big, and they didn't know where to move to. Perhaps if they ran recklessly, they would bump into the demon clan. Everyone was in a state of panic. If the Heavenly Emperor didn't come out, everyone felt that they had no backbone and no confidence. Ling Han, on the other hand, was calm and composed. Every day, he would cultivate and study array formations and alchemy. His days were extremely fulfilling. Just like that, 8 days passed. The big shots held another meeting, but this time, Ling Han was not called over. It was said that only a few of the princes who were ranked highly insisted on going to war, while the military and the head of parliament were strongly against it. On the morning of the second day, they finally made a decision. Ling Han didn't know how the 4 marshals and the chief of staff were convinced. Perhaps the princes had used force. At least a few of them had reached the enlightening realm, so it wasn't difficult to convince the 4 marshals and the chief of staff. Since they had decided to go to war, they had to mobilize all of their forces to face the invasion of the demon race. Ling Han was also informed that he would be joining the army and leading the way. Ling Han didn't care about this. Although he didn't think he had done anything wrong, he was still the fuse of this war. It wasn't too much to be on the front lines. On the contrary, he was somewhat excited. He wanted to experience the power of the demon race. The profligates in the capital were also mobilized. Most of them were students of the Imperial Capital College, and some had already graduated. The demon race was too powerful. They needed the battle strength of the ultimate bone realm to fight against it, and they were the core strength. Most of them were pessimistic, but they also held on to a glimmer of hope. That was that their Saint Emperor would come out of seclusion and turn the situation around by himself. Otherwise, they would really be sending themselves to their deaths. So what if they could hold off the demon race for 10 days or a month? In the end, the sky would still fall. These noble soldiers gathered in the plaza. The 4 marshals would mobilize them and then head to the front lines. When Ling Han arrived, he immediately received many hateful glares. To most people, it was completely Ling Han's fault that they were standing here. Once they entered the battlefield, it was very likely that more than half of them wouldn't come back. Who wanted to die? Especially these profligates, who had lived a leisurely life in the capital. To them, war was something extremely distant. But now that they had to face it all at once, they didn't know what to do. Ling Han didn't say anything. Even if he told these people, even without his reason, the demon race would still launch an invasion. It was just that they might be a few days late. At 10 in the morning, everyone had arrived. Those who were late would be sentenced to death. This was a war, and there were no exceptions. No one could act like a big shot. The 4 marshals began to ramble, saying some words that made everyone's blood boil. On the battlefield, morale was very important. If morale was low, they might only be able to use 30% of their battle strength. But if morale was high, they might be able to perform better than normal. All right, let's go. After the 4 marshals had finished speaking, Yang Bai stood up and waved his hand. Just as everyone was about to set off, they suddenly saw a black shadow in the sky. What's that? Someone with sharp eyes asked. Warship. Why is our warship in that position? Everyone was curious. This time, all the warships would be mobilized for the war. It was too unexpected for them to appear in that position. It's the demon race's warship. When the black shadow got closer, everyone could clearly see it and couldn't help but exclaim. The demon race had come. Why would they choose this time? If they didn't hand over Ling Han today, then war would follow. Could it be that the demon race was so confident that the human race would definitely bow their heads, so they had sent a warship to bring Ling Han back? How arrogant. The warship was huge, but it wasn't slow. It quickly arrived above the plaza, casting a huge shadow. This warship was about 600 meters long and 800 meters wide. It could be said to be a colossus. Such a large body couldn't even land on the plaza and could only hover. Swish. A giant eagle flew out from the warship and swiftly descended. Reading on a mobile phone was more refreshing. Chapter 3397. A Beautiful Romance. BQG 6. CC in the sky, a giant eagle spread its wings. They were dozens of meters long and shockingly large. It fluttered its wings and descended rapidly, stopping about 10 meters above the square. At this moment, everyone could clearly see that there were more than a dozen people standing on the giant eagle's back. However, the eagle's body was too large, so standing on it was a small matter. They were all demons, both men and women. The demon race was really arrogant. Xianbei Nation was already mobilizing for battle, but they had come so openly. Were they trying to show off? Good, let's make sure they won't be able to return. Everyone drew their weapons, their fighting spirit roused. Many of these spoiled brats bullied the weak and feared the strong. They would be afraid to fight on the battlefield, but now there were only a dozen opponents. What was there to be afraid of? There was only one word to say: fight. Who's in charge here? Someone from the demon race asked. It was a tall, slender elder. Apart from his somewhat long and pointed ears, there was almost no difference between him and a human. But as soon as he spoke, at least half of them sat down, no longer having the will to fight. It was too frightening. This aura was like a blood fiend Azura returning from a hellish battlefield. The remaining half were still standing, but that was all they could do. They couldn't even take a step forward. Xiao, Xiao, Xiao. The four marshals, Yang Bai, and senior tutor Hong leapt over at the same time, their faces flashing with fear. This elder was too powerful, far surpassing the engravement realm. I am the general of the Yu dynasty's Crimson Eagle army, Xue Kailuo. The elder spoke. His voice was like metal, full of destructive power. Crimson Eagle Army General. The four marshals' expressions changed. They had already learned from the third prince that the general of the Crimson Eagle Army was a secret-seeking expert. In other words, this Xue Kailuo was 2 whole realms higher than them. 2 big realms, not a small one. Not to mention them, even that heaven-suppressing monster, Hong Tian Bu, could only lower his head in front of Xue Kailuo. Xue Kailuo swept his gaze over everyone, his face revealing a look of disdain. Weak, truly weak. So it's General Xue, one of the 3 great generals of the demon race. With a long laugh, the princes who were ranked highly also appeared. Even if they were facing a powerhouse from the secret realm, they were not afraid at all. That's more like it. Xue Chiluo swept his gaze across the princes, no longer looking down on them. Finally, the cultivation of the enlightening realm wasn't so weak that he couldn't even be bothered to look at them. The 7th prince and the others, including Xue Chiluo, turned their heads to look behind them. Father, it seems like an incredible fellow has arrived. 6th baby whispered into Ling Han's ear. She had been sitting on Ling Han's shoulder, while the other milk babies were all in the spirit-nourishing gourd. Ling Han couldn't see it, but he had a vague feeling that some terrifying existence was rapidly approaching. It was a pity that he couldn't summon second baby now. With her pupil sorcery, she would definitely be able to see it clearly. However, after a short while, a green light appeared on the horizon. Very quickly, this light appeared on the square, and a middle-aged man appeared. Hey, this is actually a prince, one can tell just by looking at his clothing. His aura was vigorous, and his skin was actually emitting a kind of green color. It was as if he had contracted some kind of illness or cultivated some kind of strange technique. Big brother, the third prince called out one after another. This was Chen Fengyan's first son, Chen Xingyu. Ling Han couldn't help but look at Chen Xingyu. Since sixth baby said that this person was incredible, there must be something amazing about him. Oh, I understand. Sixth baby nodded even though no one could see it. Ling Han lowered his voice and asked, "What did you see?" "Father, this fellow has the azure dipper star constitution," sixth baby said. "Innate divine body?" Ling Han asked. He had already learned from the Gord brothers that there were innate divine bodies in this world. They were born with incomparable talent in martial art, as well as all kinds of magical powers. For them, fighting against their own realms was as simple and natural as eating and drinking. Sixth baby nodded and said seriously, "Yes, although it's not considered very terrifying among the innate divine bodies, it's still very powerful to be called an innate divine body." Azure dipper star constitution? While Ling Han and sixth baby were talking, Chen Xingyu also nodded at his younger brothers. He then looked at Xue Kailuo and said, "I didn't expect the demon race's supreme commander to visit personally. Please forgive me for not going out to meet you." Xue Kailuo's eyes narrowed and he said, "Is this the first prince?" "That's right, I am." Chen Xingyu nodded majestically. From this point, he was very similar to Chen Fengyang. It was unknown whether it was because he was his first son, or if he was deliberately imitating him. Xue Kailuo completely withdrew his contempt and said, as expected of the Saint Emperor's bloodline, "He's actually at the secret-seeking realm." What? The first prince had already entered the secret-seeking realm? Everyone was shocked. Even the third prince's expression changed. Although cultivation wasn't everything, Chen Xingyu was the only prince who had entered the secret-seeking realm. This naturally gave him a lot of points. The first prince smiled faintly and said, "General Xue, what brings you here?" Xue Kailuo looked at the first prince and took a deep breath. He said, "I have come here on behalf of His Majesty." He paused, as if he found it difficult to speak. After a while, he said, "Hand over the letter of surrender." Fat. Everyone choked, and their faces were filled with astonishment. "Are you kidding me? Letter of surrender? Haha." The demon race had sent envoys to demand Xianbei country's surrender twice. Afterwards, they had brazenly threatened that if Xianbei country didn't hand over Ling Han, they would attack. So arrogant, why did they suddenly hand over a letter of surrender? Moreover, although the demon race's strength wasn't unbridled, as long as one's status was high enough, they would know how terrifying the demon race was. Not to mention an all-out attack, any one of the three armies would be enough to wipe out Xianbei country. The demon race had actually sent a general to hand over a letter of surrender even though they had the upper hand in terms of strength. How could they believe it? Not even in a daydream would they be so unreliable. Oh, is that true? Although the first prince was also shocked, he quickly regained his composure. Xue Kailuo revealed a look of humiliation. He had come on behalf of the Yu dynasty to hand over a letter of surrender. This wasn't something to be proud of, so he wasn't in the mood to joke around. He said in a low voice, "How could I joke about such a thing?" Then it was true. Even if they were joking, they wouldn't do it in such a manner. Offering a letter of surrender in front of so many people. But the problem was that they had analyzed it before, and the demons had no reason to lower their heads at all. This left everyone scratching their heads in confusion. The first prince had the demeanor of his father, calm and collected. He immediately smiled and said, "Oh, since the Yu dynasty is willing to surrender, then Lord Yang, please come and preside over this." Although he was the first prince, Yang Bai was the one in charge. He couldn't overstep his boundaries. Reading on the phone was more refreshing. Chapter 3398. A Beautiful Romance. BQG 6. Yang Bai was baffled. The development of the situation had taken too many twists and turns. He had been caught off guard. Why had the demon race surrendered? He was puzzled. Could it be that the Black North nation didn't even dare to accept a surrender? Yang Bai walked out and faced Crimson Luo. Crimson Luo stretched out his hand and an imperial edict appeared out of thin air. He held it with both hands and handed it over to Yang Bai. Yang Bai reached out and took the imperial edict, then unfolded it. The 4 commanders and the princes couldn't help but move closer. Their eyes swept over the edict, and all of them revealed expressions of surprise and joy. This really was a surrender. The demon emperor had praised Chen Fengyang to the highest degree, and was willing to lead his nation to surrender and become Chen Fengyang's subordinate. "Long live your majesty," Yang Bai was the first to say. His voice was very loud and trembling. It was clear from the letter that the demon race had only surrendered because of Chen Fengyang. A single person subduing an entire nation was simply a myth. Long live the sacred emperor. The 4 commanders also raised their weapons and roared. Long live the sacred emperor. Although the surrounding people hadn't seen the letter with their own eyes, the council head and the 4 commanders had already reacted in such a manner. Who would have thought that an impending war would end in such a dramatic manner? In order to express our emperor's respect and forge a lasting friendship between our 2 races, our emperor has also sent his most beloved daughter, Princess Bai Xiao. He hopes that she can marry one of the princes and serve as a bridge between our 2 dynasties, Crimson Luo said. He took a step back and bowed, making way for a woman behind him. This woman had been hidden behind Crimson Luo this entire time, and her face had been covered by a white veil. Naturally, she hadn't attracted anyone's attention. But now, she was exposed to thousands of pairs of eyes. A peerless beauty. For a moment, the same thought rose in everyone's mind. Although this woman's appearance wasn't obvious, just her figure alone was enough to make one's heart flutter. She was definitely a beauty that could bring calamity to a nation. The demon princess had come for a marriage proposal. Everyone couldn't help but look at the princes. Just the thought of such a peerless beauty being betrothed to one of them was enough to make anyone jealous. Princess Bai Xiao took off her veil, and a beautiful face appeared. Her facial features were as exquisite as the most exquisite work of art in the world, like a dream or fantasy. Could such a stunning beauty really exist in this world? She bowed towards the princes and the 4 marshals, saying, "Bai Xiao pays her respects to the princes and lords." This woman was truly a peerless beauty that could cause the downfall of a city. Not only did the 4 great marshals and Yang Bai reveal a stupefied expression, but even the princes who were ranked at the top of the rankings were also tempted. Everyone looked at the princes with even more envy, jealousy, and hatred. For such a stunning beauty, they were willing to commit murder and arson. Ling Han gritted his teeth. Could it be that this demon emperor wanted to use a honey trap and then drive a wedge between them, using Princess Bai Xiao to cause internal strife in Xianbei country and win without a fight? "Dad, I'll definitely be prettier than her when I grow up," 6th baby said with a pout. Ling Han chuckled. He had something to say, but did not say it out loud. "Old 6, you are invisible. So what if you are beautiful? No one can see you." Sigh, without the big black dog by his side, there was no one to help him ridicule. He had to be responsible for all the ridicule, and it was very tiring. This Princess Bai Xiao was indeed very beautiful, but not as beautiful as the Empress and Hu Niu. Ling Han quickly retracted his attention and asked 6th baby, "How powerful is the Azure Dipper Star physique?" 6th baby bit his finger and thought for a while, then said, "It can activate a mystical power and shoot out Azure Qi, which has a terrifying destructive power." If even 6th baby said so, then this Azure Dipper Star physique should be very powerful. However, the Azure Dipper Star physique can only be ranked 9th, and can't compare to many acquired mystical powers. 6th baby expressed his disdain again. "For example, your invisibility technique?" Ling Han asked with a smile. "That's true. The mystical powers that the 7 of us possess can definitely be ranked in the top 3. Only the Boundless Divine Body, the 10,000 Calamities Divine Body, and some other super divine bodies can surpass us. However, such a divine body may not appear even once in tens of thousands of years," 6th baby said proudly. "Yi, how did you get 3rd baby's bad habit?" Ling Han couldn't help but be envious. He was born from a divine stone, so why didn't he have any mystical powers? This didn't make sense. Could it be that he had some hidden mystical powers that he hadn't activated? Ling Han couldn't help but start complaining again. "Looks like there's nothing left for us to do. Let's go back." Ling Han turned around. Since the demon race had already surrendered, there naturally wouldn't be a war. Without the threat of the demon race, no one dared to put Ling Han under house arrest. The imperial guards outside his courtyard quickly withdrew. After 2 days, Shenyuan Dinghua came looking for him. Hey, hey, hey! Do you know why the demon race surrendered? He asked mysteriously. I don't know. Ling Han shook his head. Why don't you guess? Shenyuan Dinghua was still keeping him in suspense. Forget it if you don't want to say. Ling Han turned his head away. Yi, why aren't you curious at all? Shenyuan Dinghua sighed. You're really not fun at all. However, he couldn't help but immediately come over and say, Is it your majesty? Millimeter Ling Han looked at him. 4 days ago, your majesty personally went to the demon race's palace and fought with the demon emperor. The next day, the demon emperor made the decision to submit and sent Shui Crimson and Princess Bai Xiao, Shenyuan Dinghua said. His face was full of admiration. If only I could cultivate 1% of your majesty's strength in this lifetime. Ling Han was also surprised. So Chen Fengyang had actually come out of seclusion without a word, and even educated the demon emperor, beating the demon race into submission. That was really impressive. Why didn't Chen Fengyang say anything in advance? Obviously, the demon emperor wanted to see how everyone would perform. Now that the peace faction had been exposed, they would definitely not be put in an important position by Chen Fengyang in the future. Speaking of which, that demon princess is really too beautiful. She's practically a source of calamity. Shenyuan Dinghua changed the topic to Princess Bai Xiao. Unfortunately, the demon race has already made it clear that this princess will only be betrothed to one of the princes. We won't have a share. He sighed, as if his parents had died. Bai Xiao's charisma was evident. Ling Han shook his head and smiled. Then you should work hard on your cultivation. In the future, when you become even more powerful than the demon emperor, you can just marry his other daughter. Shenyuan Dinghua had pretended to beat him up. Was it even possible for him to surpass the demon emperor? Bang, bang, bang. At that moment, someone knocked on the door. Who is it? It's already so late. The little maid ran to open the door, but a moment later, she ran back in shock. Young master, there's someone outside who claims to be the demon race's princess. Phut! Shenyuan Dinghua spat out a mouthful of tea. Reading on the phone was more refreshing. Chapter 3400. A Good Romance. BQG 6. The demon race had treasures. The fourth prince had been very generous and had given Ling Han more than 40 treasure fruits of life. Now that there was a princess, this tradition should be carried forward. However, Princess Bai Xiao was in the secret realm and could not be defeated. She was also responsible for her beauty, so how could she easily make a move? Therefore, it was unrealistic to try to trick Princess Bai Xiao and obtain the treasure fruits like the fourth prince of the demon race. Even if he succeeded, with Princess Bai Xiao's popularity, Ling Han would probably be condemned by everyone. Then what should he do? Ling Han looked at the Calabash brothers and couldn't help but smile. Sixth brother, come, I have a task for you. Ling Han smiled. He gave sixth brother face to face, and the little boy kept nodding and showing a look of understanding. I understand. Sixth brother showed a look of admiration. Father, you are so despicable. Ling Han said with a serious face, despicable is not a compliment, it is wise. Father, you are so wise. The 7 children said at the same time. Ling Han taught sixth brother nothing more than to use sixth brother's invisibility ability to dirty Princess Bai Xiao's clothes, or steal her spatial ritual implement while she was bathing. With a wave of his hand, a treasure fruit appeared. If it was not a spatial ritual implement, what was it? Sixth brother immediately set off while Ling Han waited for good news. In the middle of the night, sixth baby returned safely. Father, I got it. Sixth brother said and handed over a jade pendant. Ling Han used his divine sense to explore and immediately entered an inner space. It was not big, only 3 feet long and wide. It was much smaller than the spirit-nourishing gourd. Other than some treasure fruits, there were also a few pieces of clothing, but there were no cultivation techniques or martial arts techniques. Seeing a few pieces of underwear, Ling Han couldn't help but grimace. It was a little hard to look at. He tried to put the spatial ritual implement into the spirit-nourishing gourd but found it impossible. After thinking about it, Ling Han took out the item from the spatial device and buried the jade pendant in the grove. He did not have to worry if Princess Bai Xiao came here to search for it. After this incident, this spatial artifact could be used. Then, he took out a treasure fruit and started munching on it. He needed to reach the extreme bone realm as soon as possible. The Sky Sea Star seemed to be on the verge of another great explosion, and this time, it might completely liberate the planet and restore it to its former glory. So, he had to seize this opportunity to rise, and the stronger he was, the greater the fortune he would be able to obtain. He cultivated with all his might. To Ling Han's surprise, although Princess Bai Xiao had been stolen, there was no great fanfare of a search. It was as if nothing had happened at all. This beauty was really shrewd. The imperial capital returned to its former peaceful days. Princess Bai Xiao began to show her unparalleled charm. Now, not only were all the princes infatuated, but even the marshals were like old trees that had sprouted. There seemed to be only one name left in the entire imperial capital, and that was Princess Bai Xiao, who had overshadowed Ling Han and Hong Tianbiyu. Moreover, the demon race would also send a delegation, composed entirely of the young geniuses of the Yu dynasty. This set off another storm in the imperial capital. The human race had Hong Tianbiyu and Ling Han, so what kind of monstrous geniuses did the demon race have? Ling Han ignored them and cultivated with all his might. With the support of the treasure fruit, Ling Han's progress was very rapid. Originally, it would have taken him 3 months to reach the peak of the 7th transformation, but now, 3 days was enough. Sure enough, after 3 days, Ling Han had reached the peak of the 7th transformation. Ling Han was not in a hurry to break through. Even heavenly treasures and treasured fruits could not truly replace bitter cultivation. The power obtained this way was not stable enough. Moreover, this was the peak of the 7th transformation. The next step was to break through a major realm. Even if he had cultivated bitterly, he still had to go back and polish it properly. With second baby watching over Ling Han believed that he could polish the blood transformation realm to perfection. At this moment, the demon race's delegation finally arrived. This was a team of 100 people. There were both men and women, and they were all very young. Even though the demon race had already pledged allegiance, these people were still arrogant. In fact, they indeed had something to be proud of. The number 1 expert of the delegation was called Hu Er. It was said that he was already a mystery-seeking expert, but because the environment did not allow him to enter a higher realm, he was only a mere 27 years old. With such talent, even Hong Tianbiyu would probably be inferior to him. He had no choice but to be convinced. Under Hu Er, there were 3 Enlightenment Realm experts, namely Hu Taifeng, Xiong Bao, and Ying Pokong. Their ages were all below 30. Below them were existences at the Engravement Realm, and there were many of them. In comparison, the only human who had advanced to the Engravement Realm below 30 years old was Hong Tianbiyu. This was a little too tragic to look at. It was said that the demon race advanced rapidly in the early stages of martial art, and it was indeed not an exaggeration. When Hu Taifeng, Xiong Bao, and Ying Pokong arrived, they immediately issued a challenge to Hong Tianbiyu, saying that they could suppress their cultivation and exchange pointers with him. However, Hong Tianbiyu was not in the imperial capital, so he naturally could not respond. Hong Tianbiyu was not here, but Ling Han was. Hence, the spearhead was immediately aimed at Ling Han. The demon race spread the word that regardless of whether it was Hu Er, Xiong Bao, or the others, they could suppress their cultivation and exchange pointers with Ling Han. They only asked if Ling Han dared to accept. Ling Han did not pay attention to them. He had already used facts to prove that he was invincible in the same realm. Right now, he was not in the mood to pay attention to the demon race. He wanted to improve his body arts and then attack the extreme bone realm. He was a busy person, so how could he have the time to pay attention to such trivial matters? The demon race was indeed tyrannical. If not for Chen Fengyang, the human race would really be the meat of the demon race. The 100 or so demon race geniuses had been challenging all over the place recently, and there was no sign of them being defeated in the same realm. Even if their opponent was a realm lower, some demon race could still not be defeated, and even win. This was the advantage of the demon race. Before they stepped onto the immortal path, the demon race would always hold this advantage and suppress the human race in terms of life. After obtaining many victories, the demonic beast race once again targeted Ling Han and Hong Tianbiyu, because they were the only two humans who had caused the demonic beast race to suffer losses. There was no need to mention Chen Fengyang, who was now the fully deserving number 1 elite of Heavenly Sea Planet. Even the demonic emperor had to lower his head to him. The demon race constantly spread the word, wanting Hong Tianbiyu and Ling Han to come out and fight. Some demon race members even used insulting words, saying that Hong Tianbiyu and Ling Han were fishing for fame. This made the people of the imperial capital very angry. You are obviously the surrendered subjects, so how can you be so arrogant? But the only one who could suppress the demon race was the Sage Emperor, and now that the Sage Emperor had not said a word, it was as if he had acquiesced to this state of affairs, leaving the people helpless. They could only hope that Ling Han or Hong Tianbiyu would step out. At this time, Ling Han received an invitation from the demon race princess, saying that there would be a banquet in 3 days, and she hoped that Ling Han could attend. Haha, unsheathing your sword? Just in time. Ling Han revealed a smile. He had just planned to attack the extreme bone realm, so in 3 days, he should be on the 3rd step of martial art. Good, let him put a damper on the demon race's spirit. End of chapter. Phone reading is more refreshing. Chapter 3401. A Good Romance. BQG 6. Ling Han accepted the invitation and began to break through to the ultimate bone realm. The illuminating pulse realm opened up all the meridians in the body. This was the channel through which secret power could be stored and circulated. It was the foundation of martial art. Without this step, one could forget about martial art. Next was the blood transformation realm. This was where the level of life truly increased. After the blood transformation realm was the ultimate bone realm. In essence, this was still an increase in the level of life. The specific manifestation was the evolution of the bones in the body. Every time the bones were broken, the bone would be expelled, and finally turned into gold. This gave the martial artist an extremely strong defense. For example, Ling Han's battle prowess in the blood transformation realm was extremely shocking. However, if he landed an attack on the bones of an ultimate bone realm expert, the opponent could completely rely on the toughness of the bones to take the attack. Thus, unless one had overwhelming power, one had to find the cracks in the bones to fight against an ultimate bone realm expert. In this way, the ultimate bone realm undoubtedly reduced the martial artist's vital points. With the protection of tough bones, the relatively weak body would have the protection of tough bones. Ling Han consumed a treasure fruit of life and began to break through. Boom, waves instantly appeared in his body, and his level of life began to increase. In theory, as long as one's cultivation level increased, their level of life would also increase. However, when one broke through to the next realm, it was undoubtedly a leap, especially for a major realm. Ling Han immediately felt his body become empty. Even if he consumed a treasure fruit of life, it was not enough. The higher one's realm, the higher the grade of the treasure fruit of life needed to break through. Ling Han had just eaten a rainbow fruit. It was not a problem for him to break through to a minor realm, but it was a bit difficult for him to break through to a major realm. Furthermore, a monster like Ling Han needed a shocking amount of life energy. It was no wonder that the 4 marshals and the other experts were stuck at the engravement realm. Without the corresponding treasure fruit of life, how would they dare to break through? It was purely seeking death. Due to the environment, there were too few great herbs. From this point, it could be seen that the monster race was truly blessed. Firstly, they covered the land, sea, and air, so the range and difficulty of gathering herbs were completely different. Furthermore, the monster race's level of life was already high, so the grade of the treasure fruit of life needed to break through could be appropriately reduced. Thus, the monster race had more experts than the human race, and their overall strength was also a level higher. Fortunately, there was Chen Fengyang, who completely supported the human race with his own strength. If not for Chen Fengyang, what would be the fate of the human race? This thought flashed through Ling Han's mind as he munched on another long rainbow fruit and continued to guide his body's evolution. Boom boom boom, a terrifying sound came from within his body, but breaking through a major realm was a matter of course, so there was no strange phenomenon in the world. F***ck, Ling Han realized that one long rainbow fruit was completely useless. He had no choice but to eat the third one. This was like trying to put out a burning cart of firewood with a cup of water. The rainbow fruits went down one after another, turning into surging life energy, yet it was immediately exhausted, practically not having any effect. In next to no time, the remaining rainbow fruits were eaten clean, but Ling Han had only walked a quarter of the path of evolution at most. He took out the treasure fruit of life that he had stolen from Princess Bai Xiao and started gnawing on it without any hesitation. This was at the level of the enlightening realm. With just one bite, Ling Han felt an ocean-like energy surging into his body, filling him up instantly. If the four marshals, Senior Grand Tutor Hong, and the others saw this, they would definitely scold Ling Han for being wasteful. If this treasure fruit was given to them, it would be enough for them to break through to the enlightening realm. Now, Ling Han was actually using it to break through to the ultimate bone realm. What a waste, too much of a waste. However, Ling Han did not care at all. He could get more after eating the treasure fruit, but could he miss the opportunity to improve his strength? On the contrary, as long as he had enough strength, what treasure could he not obtain? Realm barrier, open for me. Ling Han continuously tore apart the shackles in his body, all the way until he reached the enlightening realm. Martial artists were all tearing apart the shackles in their bodies, but some people tore apart more, while others tore less. This was the foundation of climbing the immortal path. Some people could be stronger than those of the same level, and some could reach the peak of the great path, all because their foundations were stronger. Pa, pa, pa. Every time Ling Han tore apart a shackle, he felt his body relax, but at the same time, he would use up a large amount of life essence. After he tore apart a total of 17 shackles, the ferocious evolution finally slowed down. Ling Han took a few more bites of the treasure fruit and continued to advance his cultivation. Pa, pa, pa. The shackles were still being torn apart, but the speed was much slower, and it was even about to stop. In breaking through to the next realm, the number of shackles that would be torn apart was completely not fixed. Generally speaking, one shackle would be torn apart for a minor realm, and 5 would be torn apart for a major realm. This was the case for most people. Ling Han had already torn apart 27 shackles. In theory, this was already incomparably shocking, but he was not satisfied. From blood transformation to enlightening, there were only a few major realms and minor realms. How many chances would he have to tear apart the shackles? He wanted to pursue the strongest, and that meant that he had to tear apart all the shackles before he stepped onto the immortal path. Therefore, he had to do his best at every step. Again, Ling Han mustered up his remaining strength, trying to make his breakthrough as perfect as possible. He tore apart the 28th shackle. Not enough, again. The 29th shackle was shattered. Still not enough. The 30th shackle was shattered. Could he do it again? Ling Han mustered up his remaining strength and tried to break through the 31st shackle. However, his evolution had already slowed down. It was like a tide that had been completely blocked by a dam. Boom, boom, boom. He broke through 9 times in a row, but to no avail. This was all he could do. No. Ling Han ate the remaining half of the treasure fruit, and then gathered all the life force in his body to break through this shackle. This was his last attempt. If he did not succeed, there would be no next time. Peng, the life force transformed into a huge wave, heavily crashing onto the shackle. Boom, even the dam could not withstand the impact of such a huge wave, and it broke apart with a loud bang. Ling Han instantly felt his whole body relax. Not only his body, but also his mind. He had broken through his limit. Of course, this limit was only for himself. For others, breaking 6 shackles would be considered as breaking through the limit. But for him, this was the true limit. This was really the limit. As the 31st shackle was broken, Ling Han felt like his body had turned into stagnant water, unable to raise any more waves. Extreme Bone Realm. Ling Han smiled. Next was bone refinement, slowly refining the bone dregs. This was a painstaking process. Even with treasured fruits that could increase one's cultivation, it was still impossible for it to be that fast. Although he said so, he took out the treasure fruit for cultivation and ate it. Now that the upper limit of his realm had been broken, he could naturally increase his secret power again. It was only at night that Ling Han finally stopped. In terms of secret power, he had already reached the middle stage of Bone Realm. However, he only had 2 treasure fruits of life for the Enlightenment realm. He had already eaten all the other treasured fruits. Reading on the phone was more refreshing. Chapter 3402. A Good Romance. BQG 6. CC opening the door to a major tier also opened a lot of new horizons for Ling Han. His mental power obtained a great improvement, and this was what Ling Han was most concerned about now. Could he make the Empress and the others come out? Ling Han tried, but his mental power manifested in the inner world, and couldn't move the Empress, Hu Niu, and the others, but Ling Han had a feeling that it was because their cultivation was too high. Try something else. He tried to grab a rock, and then took it out. The rock instantly shattered, and then disappeared. Ling Han was startled. The thing was taken out, but it turned into dust, not even a speck of ash remained. He thought for a moment, and instantly understood. He was once the strongest heavenly venerable, but after coming into the world, he was still extremely weak, and could only walk after lying down for 3 days. In other words, if the strongest heavenly venerable came here, he would be about the same as an ordinary adult man. Then, needless to say, those below heavenly venerable were extremely weak. Ordinary rocks like this couldn't withstand the power of heaven and earth of the outer world at all, directly shattering and turning into nothingness. Similarly, if ordinary people were brought out by Ling Han, they would probably only be able to turn into nothingness. Ling Han randomly found a wolf. It wasn't a demonic beast, and was extremely ordinary. With a thought, he brought this wolf out of the inner world. Without even a whimper, this wolf was shattered into pieces, not even leaving behind a mist of blood or bone fragments. Too weak, completely crushed by the power of heaven and earth. This was like this wolf being struck by a 7-step heavenly venerable. How could it bear it? Ling Han continued to try, experimenting with extremely vicious demonic beasts or villains. He discovered that he could now bring out creatures of the highest shattering void tier or the corresponding materials. Any higher, and his mental power wouldn't be able to move them. But after coming out, the power of heaven and earth pressed down, immediately shattering, leaving not the slightest bit of residue. Ling Han speculated that firstly, his strength still needed to improve, mainly his mental power, so that he could bring out the strongest beings. Secondly, the beings in the inner world also had to be strong enough to resist the pressure from the outside world. He didn't know what this line was. Celestial King Heavenly Venerable or 7-step Heavenly Venerable? He could only wait and see. There was no way to test it now. He told everyone to properly cultivate. If an immortal king could come out, that would be fine, but an Empyrean starting point was too high, and it was destined that only a few people would be able to come out. He still needed to raise his cultivation as soon as possible. Ling Han sighed, and did not dwell on this matter any longer. He used his psyche power to drive the flying sword. Shio, a cold light flashed. It was indescribably fast. 7 times the speed of sound. Ling Han smiled. The higher the speed, the harder it would be to increase it further. No matter how small the resistance was, it would become incomparably large under rapid accumulation. If he wanted to continue increasing the speed, he had to first strengthen his psyche power, and secondly, he had to make the flying sword lighter and sharper to reduce the resistance. Demon monkey punch-slapping force of 50 coupled with the frequency of his attacks, Ling Han believed that he would be able to battle a 3-vein level expert. He might even be able to kill a 2-vein level expert. Not only do I want to be invincible among my peers, but I also want to be invincible across realms, Ling Han murmured. The next step was to improve his physical skills. At that time, he would be able to fight even a 4-vein level expert. Unfortunately, not only were the treasure fruits gone, but the purple-yellow honey had also been used up. He could only rely on himself to cultivate bit by bit. He would take it slow. Ling Han knew that his period of rapid cultivation improvement was over. Moreover, as his realm got higher and higher, it would be more and more difficult to maintain the rapid growth of his cultivation in the future. Unless the world changed drastically again, and more ancient sites and more treasure fruits appeared. Soon, it should be soon. Chen Fengyang and Jin Sanyan had both said so. Now, I need a higher level spirit diagram and movement skills. The shuttle steps can no longer keep up with my realm, Ling Han murmured. But who would sell a higher level movement skill? Ling Han shook his head. It seemed that he could only improve the shuttle steps himself. In the inner world, he had mastered countless movement skills. Although the environment was different and he could not use them immediately, it might be possible if he combined them with the shuttle steps. He began to work, but this was not something that could be achieved in a short period of time. 2 days had passed, and he had not made much progress. However, it was already time for the banquet hosted by Princess Bai Xiao. Then he would take it easy and set off. Father, we want to go too. The 7 children all ran over. 3rd child hung on Ling Han's chest, which was her usual position, while 4th child and 5th child each hugged one of his thighs. However, 7th baby had only run halfway when he fell forward and fell to the ground. He fell into a deep sleep. Ling Han smiled and said, "All right, everyone go." He let all 6 children enter the spirit-nurturing gourd. There was no need for 6th child. He could hold him without worrying about being seen. He let the little servant girl and the fat pig look after the house while he went to attend the banquet. Tomorrow, he would move out of the academy. He had to graduate from the ultimate bone realm. Peng, peng, peng. Ling Han had just walked to the door when he heard someone knocking on it. He opened the door and saw an old man standing at the door. It was Butler Mu. Hey, Butler Mu. Ling Han was surprised. Why would the other suddenly visit? Butler Mu nodded and said, "Are you going to attend Princess Bai Xiao's banquet?" Ling Han did not know what this had to do with Butler Mu, but there was nothing to hide. He nodded and said, "That's right." Butler Mu revealed an awkward expression and said, "Ling Han, I have a presumptuous request." Ling Han frowned slightly and said, "Please speak." "I would like you to bring my young miss as a dance partner," Butler Mu said. "What? Bring Feng Ruoxian to the banquet?" Ling Han was stunned and immediately understood. Feng Ruoxian's current situation was very awkward. Because she had taken the initiative to join the demon race, her reputation had long been ruined. She had the title of countess, and no one cared about her at all. This was something that Feng Ruoxian could not tolerate. She had ambitions. How could she be willing to remain silent and have no visitors? Therefore, Feng Ruoxian thought of Ling Han. The current Ling Han could be said to be very popular. He had 2 Grandmaster titles and was ranked 2nd in the Hong Tian steps. If she could appear in public with Ling Han, she could naturally wash away her image. This was why Butler Mu came to visit. Because Butler Mu and Ling Han had some friendship. Ling Han shook his head. "Butler Mu, this is too much." "Is that so?" Butler Mu smiled. Actually, he also knew that Feng Ruoxian had shed all pretense of cordiality with Ling Han. Now that she wanted Ling Han's help, it would be strange if he would agree. But Feng Ruoxian was already like a crazy demon. He could not bear to see her like this, so he made this trip. He hated in his heart. Back then, he wanted to entrust Feng Ruoxian to Ling Han. If Feng Ruoxian was not so arrogant, the 2 of them would most likely be a couple now. Thinking about how glorious Ling Han was now, how could he be inferior to any of the princes? Sigh, he deserved it. He turned around and left, his figure desolate. Phone reading is more refreshing. Chapter 3404. A Good Romance. BQG 6. Sigrand Duke Bao thought about it. He definitely couldn't lose, so he was fearless even if he had to bet his life. "Fine, I'll bet my life with you." He slammed the table. Ling Han laughed heartily. "Your life isn't worth anything." I wouldn't want it even if you gave it to me. Sigh, if you couldn't talk, I could still kill you for food. But since you can talk, how am I supposed to eat you? *ck, I can't let you eat me, or is it my fault? Wait, how can I lose? Grand Duke Bao flew into a rage. Ling Han, you're clearly the one who's afraid of losing. Ling Han sighed. Do you have any treasure fruits? No. Grand Duke Bao shook his head reflexively. Then how many jade seeds do you have? More than 10,000. Grand Duke Bao was once again swayed. Ling Han sighed. Since you don't have any treasure fruits or jade seeds, I can't eat you even if I kill you. What use do I have for you? Grand Duke Bao froze, then fumed with anger. It turned out that Ling Han was still teasing him. He thought about it and said, fine, I'll bet my panther race's ultimate technique, drifting wind and cloud. Brother Bao. Brother Bao. The two demons beside him hurriedly called out, their expressions urgent. Drifting wind and cloud is a secret technique of the panther race. It can't be passed on to outsiders, especially not to a human. Grand Duke Bao snorted and said with dissatisfaction, do you think I'll lose? Of course not, but... The two hesitated. Since I won't lose, then what's the big bet? Grand Duke Bao said coldly. Then he slammed the table again and said to Ling Han, what do you think? Ling Han was astounded. How did you know that I'm currently lacking a movement technique? Seeing Ling Han's stunned expression, Great Elder Bao thought that he had been too clever for his own good. He had thought that he would be able to intimidate him with some kind of bet, but he had never thought that he would actually dare to accept his challenge, directly causing Ling Han to be unable to retreat. He couldn't help but sneer. I've already placed a bet. Are you afraid? Sure. Ling Han stood up. If it's just to get beaten up, I won't bother wasting my energy. But since there's a movement technique that I can take a look at, I'll reluctantly do it. Grand Duke Bao was so angry that he almost died. They hadn't even started fighting yet, and you're already saying that I'm no match for you? He did not flare up. Since Ling Han had already agreed to the challenge, he could vent his anger in the battle later. Come. He strode forward and was about to walk into the spacious courtyard. Ling Han waved his hand and said, that won't do. You have to take out the wager first. How do I know you won't go back on your word after you lose? All right. Right now, Grand Elder Leopard only wanted Ling Han to fight. Everything else could be compromised. Then let's ask Her Highness to be the notary. Ling Han smiled. Just then, he saw Princess Bai Xiao walk out. She immediately became the center of attention and was surrounded by countless people. Be it humans or demons, all of them looked at Princess Bai Xiao fervently. Ling Han strode over, but the crowd was too dense. He could not squeeze through at all unless he used violence. He smiled and called out, Princess Bai Xiao, Princess Bai Xiao. Instantly, everyone turned their heads to look at him. Each and every one of them had a look of disdain on their faces. How could this person not know the rules? How could he make such a big fuss in such an occasion? The crowd parted, and Princess Bai Xiao walked out. Her beautiful eyes were full of charm. She was definitely the most beautiful person Ling Han had seen since entering the new world. Princess Bai Xiao glanced at Ling Han and said, so it's Grandmaster Ling. You've changed your mind? Ling Han smiled and waved his hand. Let's not talk about this today. One of your subordinates wants to challenge me, and everyone knows that if there's no wager, why would I accept the challenge? So, I'd like to ask Her Highness to be the notary and take care of the wager in case someone goes back on their word. Have you had enough? Grand Elder Leopard roared. I'm the son of the dignified Leopard Chief. How can I go back on my word? One must always be on guard. I'm not familiar with you, Ling Han said lightly. Princess Bai Xiao looked at Grand Elder Leopard and said, you really have to bet with him? Yes, Your Highness, Grand Elder Leopard said respectfully. He did not know that Princess Bai Xiao was a mystery realm expert, but Bai Xiao was too beautiful. Even the youths of the demon race were in love with her. Princess Bai Xiao thought about it and said, all right, hand over the wager to me. Grand Elder Leopard looked at Ling Han hatefully. This brat actually dared to drag Her Highness into this. However, he still took out a book and walked over to hand it over to Bai Xiao. Ling Han, where's your wager? Princess Bai Xiao asked Ling Han. Grand Elder Leopard had lost his sense of propriety because of Ling Han's provocation, but how could she? That's right, how could I forget about this? I was only focused on getting angry. Grand Elder Leopard scratched his head. Ling Han nodded, took out an item from his bosom, and threw it to Princess Bai Xiao. This action displeased everyone. She was a peerless beauty. How could he treat her so disrespectfully? However, when they saw what Ling Han had tossed out, a strange expression appeared on most of their faces. Some demonic beasts were so enraged that they jumped up. Ling Han had only thrown out a jade seed. Did he think a jade seed was worth the same as a demon's cultivation technique? What kind of humiliation was this? Ling Han, you've gone too far. Do you think my demon's cultivation technique is only worth a jade seed? You're humiliating us. Many members of the demonic beast race roared in fury, wanting nothing more than to skin Ling Han alive. Ling Han sneered. What a joke. Grand Elder Leopard is challenging me now. Of course, he has to follow my rules. If you're not convinced, you can choose not to fight. I'm not forcing him with a knife to his neck. He paused and looked at Grand Elder Leopard. Do you still want to fight? Grand Elder Leopard gritted his teeth and said, fine, let's fight. He believed that he wouldn't lose. Moreover, Ling Han and Hong Tianbu were the only two nemeses of the demon race. Thus, he had to defeat them at all costs and restore the demon race's invincible reputation. All the demons nodded slowly. The purpose of fighting Ling Han wasn't about the stakes, but to establish the demon race's invincible image. Under such circumstances, no matter how harsh Ling Han's conditions were, they would actually agree. Then let's begin, Princess Bai Xiao said. Her beautiful eyes shone with the light of wisdom. Ling Han and Grand Elder Leopard moved to the courtyard. It was very, very large, with fake mountains and ponds. It was exquisite beyond compare, but once the battle began, this place would be reduced to ruins. It didn't matter. They just had to rebuild it. Ling Han, I'm at the 3rd tier of the ultimate bone realm, but when I fight you, I will suppress my strength to the blood transformation realm and fight you fairly, Grand Elder Leopard said indifferently. Now that they were really going to fight, he actually calmed down. This was the kind of reaction a genius should have. Ling Han shook his head. There's no need to suppress my cultivation. Since I'm willing to fight, I don't need anyone to give me a chance. Hiss, this was a big one. Grand Elder Leopard sneered. You said that yourself. Reading on the phone is more refreshing. Chapter 3405. A Good Romance. BQG 6. See, the humans shook their heads. Why did Ling Han have to be so stubborn? What they didn't know was that since Ling Han wanted to cheat Great Leopard Elder of his movement skills, he naturally couldn't let him suppress his cultivation. Otherwise, he would have something to say after he lost. Furthermore, Ling Han did not care whether his opponent was at 3 bones or 5 bones. Since they were both at the ultimate bone realm, he would definitely win. There were no conditions for being invincible among those of the same level, unless someone was like Ling Han, who had once reached the 7 transformations in the blood transformation realm. This was impossible. Therefore, he did not need to take advantage of Great-Grandfather Bao. Junior Leopard, come on. Ling Han crooked his finger at Grand Elder Leopard. You're courting death. Grand Elder Leopard exerted strength in his legs and burst forward. In an instant, he had reached 5 times the speed of sound. Normally, the speed of an ultimate bone realm martial artist should be 2 times the speed of sound. However, this fellow had clearly not activated his blood chi seething, yet his speed had reached 5 times the speed of sound. Clearly, this was the specialty of his race. Leopards were good at speed. Ling Han smiled faintly. With his hands behind his back, he also sprang forward at 5 times the speed of sound. Both of them were traveling at 5 times the speed of sound. One was advancing while the other was retreating. They maintained a considerable distance from each other and were unable to shorten the distance. Grand Elder Leopard snorted and challenged him to a race of speed. You're so naive. He let out a soft roar, and a rhythmic sound came from his body. Then, his speed began to soar. 5 times the speed of sound. This was extremely shocking. Without boiling blood chi, he was actually able to increase his speed to a level that surpassed the engravement realm. It could be said that with just this kind of speed, he could challenge those in the engravement realm. Ling Han, on the other hand, stopped in his tracks. Competing in speed with the panther race, a race that was naturally good at running, there was no need. He clenched his fist. He didn't even need to use his eye sorcery. All he needed to do was capture it with his divine sense. Then, he threw a punch at Grand Elder Leopard. His speed couldn't reach 4 times the speed of sound, but he could attack without any difficulty. Grand Elder Leopard sneered. "You finally dare to confront me head-on?" He had the cultivation of 3 bones, and he was also a monster. His battle prowess surpassed the peak of the 5 bones, but the Great Realm was too difficult to cross, and it was difficult for him to reach the height of the engravement realm. However, it was absolutely impossible for Ling Han to possess the cultivation of the engravement realm. In this world, there was no one whose battle prowess could cross 2 great realms. Sure, he threw a punch. Boom! The 2 men's fists instantly collided, causing a huge shockwave, and everyone saw an inconceivable scene. Ling Han stood firmly where he was, while Great Elder Bao staggered and retreated repeatedly. Damn, what's going on? Grand Duke Bao was no match for Ling Han. A 3-bone expert was actually not a match for a blood transformation expert. Furthermore, this 3-bone expert was a demon race genius with unrivaled power within the same realm. Who can believe that? Ling Han broke into a grin, and asked, "Kitty, are we still going to fight?" The leopard great-grandfather was instantly enraged. Although the leopard was also a feline, its bloodline was extremely noble. How could a wild cat compare to it? Similarly, young Master Cat was also enraged. However, he was defeated by Ling Han, so he could only feel gloomy. "I underestimated you," the leopard great-grandfather said coldly. He took a deep breath and adjusted his condition. He was still full of confidence. Although his original strength was inferior to Ling Han's, his speed clearly gave him the upper hand. Moreover, the demon race's eruption could come and go as they pleased, so he had the absolute initiative. Thus, after he erupted, Ling Han could only retreat and defend. If he defended for too long, he would definitely lose. And if Ling Han's blood chi also erupted, then the leopard great-grandfather would use his speed to increase the distance between them. As long as he could endure for 10 minutes, he would be able to launch a frontal attack and defeat Ling Han in his explosive state. This was the strength of the demon race. They could suppress the human race in all aspects. Boom, his blood chi surged, but it only caused all the hair on his body to stand on end. His power surged, and his strength soared. Xiao, he attacked once again. With his blood chi surging, coupled with the special movement technique of the leopard race, his speed soared to 4 times the speed of sound. He was indescribably fast. There was a hint of a smile at the corner of Ling Han's mouth. He used his eye technique, and instantly, the movement of heaven and earth slowed down. As for the leopard great-grandfather's movements, they seemed to become block by block, allowing Ling Han to see everything clearly. He swung out his fist. Thunder Light Fist. The power of the Thunder Light Fist was not as great as that of the Demon Monkey Fist, but it had one characteristic, and that was its speed. It was as fast as light. Shio, shio, shio. Fist after fist blasted towards the leopard great-grandfather. With the speed at which the leopard great-grandfather was moving, what were the chances of him dodging the Thunder Light Fist? An expression of shock spread across Great Elder Bao's face. Logically speaking, with his high speed, Ling Han should not have been able to track his movements at all. However, the truth was the exact opposite. The power of Ling Han's fists was still surging towards him. There was no way to dodge. The leopard great-grandfather could only block Ling Han's attacks with his hands in front of his body. Peng, peng, peng. In that instant, he was hit by hundreds of attacks. His figure was forced to a stop, and then he was sent flying backwards. A complete defeat. Everyone was stunned. The leopard great-grandfather was already boiling, and his battle prowess had doubled. Yet, he was still no match for Ling Han. This was too shocking. Ling Han retracted his fists and said, "How about it? Do you still want to fight?" The leopard great-grandfather bared his teeth. This opponent was powerful, and his eyesight was terrifying. Even though he was moving at 4 times the speed of sound, Ling Han was still able to accurately track his movements, and then force him to a stop with a torrential barrage of attacks. It didn't matter if his speed was inferior, as long as his attack speed was high enough. Do I still want to fight? The leopard great-grandfather was also asking himself this question. From the bottom of his heart, he didn't want to fight anymore. Ling Han gave him a powerful pressure, and he had no confidence in winning. But for the sake of the Yarrow race's dignity, his current battle prowess was not at a disadvantage, so how could he have the nerve to give up? From the moment he challenged Ling Han, this was no longer a battle between the two of them, but a battle between the Yarrow race and the human race. "Fight," the leopard great-grandfather said heavily. His hands shook, and black energy wrapped around his sharp claws, causing his hands to appear incomparably large. The Yarrow race was naturally adept at using high-level energy, and this was another advantage of the Yarrow race. The Yarrow race is invincible. The leopard great-grandfather attacked again. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. He waved his claws, and instantly, streaks of black claw marks flew towards Ling Han, forming a dense net that covered the sky and covered the earth. Ling Han humphed, and once again punched out. This time, he also activated the golden energy. Boom. As he punched out, even he was shocked. This golden energy was too vast, and in comparison, the black energy of the leopard great-grandfather was practically trash. The strength of high-level energy was determined by 2 factors, purity and quantity. In terms of purity, Ling Han's golden energy was denser, and in terms of quantity, Ling Han's was at least 3 times the size of the leopard great-grandfather's. Both of these factors were ruthlessly left far behind by Ling Han. How could they possibly compare? Boom. The golden fist blasted out, forming a complete crushing force, and the black claw marks were instantly annihilated. Reading on the phone was more refreshing. Chapter 3406. A Good Romance. BQG 6. CC Elder Leopard was startled and hurriedly ran. The golden energy came crashing over. If he didn't dodge, he would be crushed to pieces. Ling Han smiled and used his lightning fist, infusing it with the golden energy. Shio, 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 it filled the sky. His mental energy had greatly improved, and he could afford to squander it like this. Elder Leopard didn't dare to take it at all. His strength wasn't enough, and his high-level energy wasn't enough either. But 10 minutes later, he immediately slowed down. The explosive period was over. Peng, how could he dodge the lightning fist? His entire body was instantly sent flying, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. All the demonic beasts were completely speechless. This was a crushing defeat in terms of raw strength, and they had no excuse. I lost. Elder Leopard still had some poise. His eyes were dim. He had been defeated by a human, and one who was weaker than him by a major realm. This had seriously damaged his confidence. How could he be called a genius? Ling Han walked toward Princess Bai Xiao and stopped about 10 feet in front of her. "Princess, please give me the wager." Princess Bai Xiao looked at Ling Han. Her expression was very calm, but there was a strange look in her eyes. This was killing intent. Ling Han knew that his performance was too heaven-defying, and this demonic princess wanted to kill him. If he rose up in the future and became a great threat to the demonic beasts, it was very likely that he would become another Chen Fengyang. But what could he do? He hadn't even used his ultimate move, and Elder Leopard had been defeated. He was too weak. In the end, Princess Bai Xiao didn't dare to make a move. Chen Fengyang was too strong. With his own strength, he had intimidated the demonic beasts into submission. It could be said that as long as Chen Fengyang didn't die, the demonic beasts wouldn't dare to rebel. She raised her hand, and instantly, the book and a jade seed were thrown toward Ling Han. Ling Han caught them and smiled. "Princess, you've made the right choice to be a witness. It's fair." Princess Bai Xiao suddenly had the urge to beat someone up. Did she want to hand over the demon race's secret technique to Ling Han? Of course not. On the contrary, She wanted to obtain the demon monkey fist from Ling Han. However, she was in the imperial capital, so how could she dare to make a move so easily? After Ling Han took the secret manual, he sat to the side and immediately began to read it. He just so happened to lack a movement technique. Reading 10 lines at a glance, he roughly flipped through it and couldn't help but smile. This drifting wind and cloud body technique could be used all the way to the secret realm. Once mastered, it could even allow a martial artist to reach twice the speed of sound. Thus, Great Leopard Grand Elder didn't practice drifting wind and cloud to the highest level. Otherwise, with the speed of the leopard race and this movement technique, his speed would become incomparably terrifying. Perhaps he could rush up and kill his opponent without them even having a chance to react. Ling Han. A man from the Yarrow clan strode over. He was tall and slender, and on his back were 2 dark red wings. There was not a single feather on them, they were completely made of flesh. Young Master Bat is going to make a move. This is the #1 expert in the extreme bone realm. Once he makes a move, it'll be a sure win. He's only 22 years old this year, similar to this human. Thus, although his cultivation level is much higher, it'll still be a fair fight. All the Yarrow clan members spoke one after another. They were full of confidence in this man. His name was Fu Kuan, and he came from the Bat clan. Just as the Yarrow clan members had said, he was the #1 expert in the extreme bone realm. If they wanted to suppress Ling Han and restore the Yarrow clan's invincible reputation, they could only rely on Fu Kuan. Otherwise, even if they had Ying Po Kong, Hu and the others, they were all much older than Ling Han. They could only suppress their cultivation level and fight again. If they suppressed their cultivation level to the same level, it would be hard to say whether they could defeat Ling Han. Hong Tian Bu and Ling Han were both heaven-suppressing monstrous geniuses. Thus, Fu Kuan was the best candidate to fight against Ling Han. Do you dare to fight? Fu Kuan challenged Ling Han. Ling Han was currently flipping through drifting wind and clouds, and the more he read, the more fascinated he became. The almighty expert of the Yarrow clan who created this movement technique was truly overflowing with talent. Ling Han. Fu Kuan couldn't help but feel annoyed. This human actually dared to ignore him? If not for the sake of the Yarrow clan's reputation, he really wanted to directly make a move, and not wait for Ling Han to agree to a battle. Only then did Ling Han raise his head impatiently. Do you know the rules? Is it appropriate to make a fuss in this kind of situation? Do you have any upbringing? Fu Kuan was instantly stunned, and only regained his senses after a while. He was so angry that he spread his wings. Who didn't know the rules? It was clearly you, but you acted as if you didn't hear what I said. If not for that, would he need to make a fuss? He suppressed his anger and said, I challenge you. Ling Han raised his head and looked at him with a calm expression. Fu Kuan explained, although I have the cultivation of 5 bones, I am only 22 years old. It can't be considered bullying you. It was true that a battle between people of the same cultivation level was fair, but a battle between people of similar age was also fair. If your cultivation level was low, it was because you didn't work hard enough, you didn't have enough talent, and you didn't have enough opportunities. It was impossible for others to accommodate you. Ling Han smiled leisurely and said, Hihi, do you know the rules for challenging me? Damn, you want to bet again? Fu Kuan snorted and said, what do you want to bet? And what do you have? Ling Han countered. Fu Kuan's gaze was awe-inspiring. He wasn't an idiot like Great Leopard Elder who would foolishly take out a bet. He used his dark red eyes to sweep across the crowd and said, I bet on this person. He leapt out, and when he returned, he was already carrying a person in his hand. If you win, you can take him back. Otherwise, I will beat him up until he starts questioning his life. It's none of my business, let go of me. The person who was caught immediately struggled. Ling Han took a look and couldn't help but have a strange expression. He smiled and said, I've never been a person who accepts threats. It was quite a coincidence that the person Fu Kuan had caught was Hu Yang. Hu Yang screamed and said, Ling Han, you're using your position to avenge a private grudge. Ling Han only chuckled and continued to flip through the wind and clouds. This was truly worth studying. Only then did Fu Kuan realize that he had made a mistake. He had actually caught an enemy of Ling Han. What use was this kind of threat? He stretched out his hand and threw Hu Yang away. Then, with a whoosh, he flew out again and caught another person. Ling Han, do you want to be a coward of the human race? He said coldly. Ling Han took another look and almost burst out laughing. Because this time, it was even more coincidental that the person Fu Kuan had caught was Jiyu Xiangming. However, he controlled himself very well and said solemnly, "Don't involve innocent people. Hurry up and let him go." Jiyu Xiangming almost vomited blood. He had paid a huge price to sneak in with a person who had an invitation. He had ambitions and didn't want to be a squad leader of the Imperial Guards for the rest of his life. This was an excellent opportunity to expand his network. But how could he have imagined that he would be caught by Fu Kuan to threaten Ling Han? What was even more infuriating was that Ling Han actually pretended that the two of them had a good relationship. If that was the case, would Fu Kuan let him go? "You're so vicious." As expected, Fu Kuan naturally wouldn't let go. He forcefully squeezed Jiyu Xiangming's arm and said coldly, "Ling Han, are you going to fight or not? Cell phone reading is more refreshing." Chapter 3408. A Good Romance. BQG 6. CCEN, this could be used to forge flying swords. Ling Han felt that his 9 flying swords couldn't keep up with his cultivation. Ling Han nodded, "Okay, I'll accept it." "Accept your sister, have you already one?" Hu Sihai snorted, "I'm a 3-vein. I'll tell you first, in case you say that I'm bullying you." Exchanging blood with inscriptions, this was already bullying to the point where it couldn't get any worse. But who asked Ling Han to challenge him? Ling Han smiled faintly, beckoning with his finger, "Come." Hu Sihai raised his hands and sharp nails popped out. Each nail was comparable to an engravement realm level weapon. The fiend race was strong in all aspects in the early stages. Ling Han placed his hands behind his back, looking calm and relaxed. "How arrogant, but now is the only time," Hu Sihai said as he charged out. With the support of 3 times the speed of sound, he instantly charged in front of Ling Han, then slashed out with his claw. Ling Han grinned, raising his fist to meet the attack. Bang! The force collided, immediately causing a huge collision, and then both sides were annihilated. What? Everyone's eyes widened, revealing expressions of disbelief. Ling Han could actually fight against an inscription realm, and a 3-vein existence at that. Furthermore, he was a genius of the tiger race. Hu Sihai wasn't as monstrous as Yuan Ying, able to fight across a realm, but his battle strength had also reached 5-vein. This was the most inconceivable part. Ling Han actually wasn't at a disadvantage. What a joke, how could there be such a powerful blood-changing realm? Ling Han bared his teeth and waved his hand. This tiger's strength was still really great. Even if he used a high-frequency attack, there was still a portion of the tiger's power that hadn't dissipated, causing his hand to feel a little numb. Princess Bai Xiao revealed a smile. "Congratulations, Master Ling, for entering the extreme bone realm." Pu. Everyone spluttered. What? Ling Han had actually broken through to the pinnacle bone tier? No wonder he could contend against Hu Sihai. A monster like Hong Tian Bu could indeed cross a large realm and still be invincible. That's not right. Didn't this fellow repeatedly injure his foundation in the blood transformation realm? It's impossible for him to break through to the extreme bone realm. How did he manage to do it? A monster. Great Leopard immediately reacted and shouted, "So you're at the extreme bone realm? You tricked me." Ling Han looked over and said, "So what if I'm at the extreme bone realm? Did I bully you?" This Great Elder Leopard was speechless. So what if Ling Han was at the ultimate bone realm? It wasn't like he was suppressing his own realm. Furthermore, Ling Han had just broken through, while he was at the 3-bone realm. Although they were both at the ultimate bone realm, he was definitely at an advantage. "You can't even win like this, and you still have the face to be a weirdo." He didn't say anything else. Otherwise, he would only be asking for humiliation. Extreme bone realm. Hu Sihai snorted. He had the advantage of a whole realm, so he should be able to win. He attacked again, like a ferocious tiger pouncing on its prey. Ling Han used the demon monkey fist. Against an expert with 5-lined battle prowess, there was no way he could hold back anymore. Boom, an ancient demon monkey appeared, fusing with the baleful aura that Ling Han had formed during the 7 transformations, and pressed down on Hu Si-hai. One had to know that Ling Han's baleful aura could even affect Yuan Ying. Hu Si-hai was definitely no match for Yuan Ying, so how could he possibly block it? His momentum had been snatched away, and he couldn't help but be stunned. Although he immediately recovered, he was still affected, and the power of his palm strike was greatly reduced. Bang! The two of them clashed again, and Hu Si-hai was instantly sent flying. Ling Han took advantage of the situation to pursue and attack. His fists spread out, and he continued to attack. Hu Si-hai did his best to parry. His strength was actually above Ling Han's, and logically speaking, he shouldn't be afraid of fighting head-on with Ling Han. However, under the suppression of his momentum, he was unable to fully display his battle prowess, and was actually at a disadvantage in such a confrontation. Everyone was speechless. A peerless genius. I think that calling him number 2 in the Hongtian steps is actually a grievance. He is him, Ling Han. That's right, the Hongtian steps is the Hongtian steps, and Ling Han is Ling Han. They are both monstrous geniuses that can suppress the heavens, and there is no such thing as one being number 2. The humans all nodded. Previously, no matter how monstrous Ling Han's performance was, everyone's highest evaluation of him was the number 2 in the Hongtian steps. There were even many people who felt that Ling Han wasn't worthy of this title. Especially when Ling Han had injured the foundation of his martial art, everyone felt that Ling Han could only stop at the blood transformation realm, and that he was even more unworthy of the title of number 2 in the Hongtian steps. But now, not only had Ling Han advanced into the ultimate bone realm, he had also continued the legend of being a monstrous genius. So what if he was a 3-vein expert? He could still suppress him. Ling Han let out a long howl. He discovered that he had still underestimated the power of the demon monkey fist, as well as the power of the baleful aura formed by the 7 transformations. He had originally thought that he could only contend against 3-vein experts, but now it seemed that even 3-vein experts could be defeated. Being invincible across a realm. Father is indeed father. Amazing. 6th baby mumbled. Even in the era of legends, I'm afraid that only peerless divine sons and goddesses could compare to father. Insignificant human. Hu Si-hai roared. He didn't want to be nailed to death on the monument of shame. He had the advantage of a whole realm, but he still had to be defeated by Ling Han. His opponent was a human. He roared, and all the hair on his body stood up. His strength instantly increased by more than 2 times. Ferocious tiger palm. Hu Si-hai used his ultimate move, and palm after palm struck out. With the addition of the power from his blood qi seething, the power of his palms had reached an indescribable level. Boom, under the entanglement of the black energy, Hu Si-ping's battle prowess had already surpassed the peak of 5-vein level. Ling Han didn't dare to take it head-on. After all, his strength was only about 1 vein, and taking this kind of power head-on was definitely seeking death. However, he didn't blood qi seething. Instead, he used his spiritual energy. Xiao, a cold light shot towards Hu Si-hai. At 7 times the speed of sound, it would be difficult for ordinary ultimate bone realm cultivators to even catch the trajectory. It was extremely likely that they would only react after being hit by the sword. Insignificant skill, Hu Si-hai said disdainfully, and he waved his palm to meet the flying sword. Pu, blood instantly spurted out of his palm. Hu Si-hai felt pain. He saw a small sword piercing his palm, and it didn't even reach the hilt. He couldn't help but be shocked. When the demon race used their full power, the increase in power was indeed not as great as the secret power of the human race, but their defense would also increase. Overall, they wouldn't be weaker than the human race. However, under the situation where his defense had increased dramatically, his palm was still pierced by Ling Han's sword. Hiss, how terrifying was this attack power? What a powerful psychokinesis, he said. It could actually pierce through his palm. The power was really terrifying. Moreover, if the sword had pierced his eye instead of his palm, what would have happened? Human race, Hu Sihai said through gritted teeth. Before stepping onto the celestial path, the demon race completely crushed the human race. However, it wasn't that the human race didn't have any advantages, and that was psychokinesis. The demon race was born with a strong physique, and with the addition of their secret power and physical strength, they definitely surpassed martial artists of the same level in terms of power. However, when it came to psychokinesis, the demon race was at a disadvantage. Thus, there were almost no alchemists or formation masters in the demon race. The opponent in front of him gave him a feeling that it was extremely difficult to deal with. Reading on a mobile phone. Chapter 3409. A Good Romance. BQG 6. Ling Han smiled and said, "Little kitty, if you don't fight, I'll take it as you admit defeat." Of course, Hu Sihai wouldn't admit defeat. He roared and pounced at Ling Han. Shua, 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 he waved his claws at high speed, creating claw prints that were entwined with black energy and had amazing destructive power. Ling Han used wind and cloud float, and his feet moved freely. His fists also punched out, creating golden fist prints. On the other hand, he also moved the surrounding gravel and threw it out at an amazing speed. Although it couldn't be compared to the lethality of the flying swords, it had the advantage of having sufficient quantity. Using the materials on the ground, it was an endless stream. Pu, pu, pu. These stones hit Hu Sihai's body and smashed into pieces, but they didn't cause much damage to Hu Sihai. Even so, Hu Sihai's figure still staggered, and his attacks were completely out of shape. Ah! Hu Sihai roared at the sky. He had never been so aggrieved before. He clearly had the advantage in strength, but he was being suppressed. An ominous light flashed in his eyes. "Human, you forced me to do this." Hong, he emitted a terrifying, ferocious aura. He was originally standing, but now he was crawling on the ground, like a fierce tiger. Pa, 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 the clothes on his body split open, and a huge tiger really appeared. He had returned to his original form. These demons all ate the transformation fruit, which was why they became human, but as long as they wanted, they could return to their original form at any time. In fact, this was their most powerful battle form. But Hu Sihai was clearly a big spotted tiger, but his body was emitting a white brilliance, making him look like a white tiger. So the legend is true, Hu Sihai has a trace of the white tiger divine beast's bloodline. Although it's just a trace, the white tiger is a terrifying existence. Just a trace of the bloodline is enough to make his battle power incomparably terrifying. Many demons exclaimed. They thought that Hu Sihai having the white tiger bloodline was just a rumor, but they didn't expect it to be true. The white tiger's bloodline is too thin. It will take at least a few years to recover after using it once. Someone with sharp eyes quickly saw through it. No wonder Hu Sihai never activates his bloodline in battle. It's because it's a trump card among trump cards. Every time he uses it, he has to rest for several years. It can only be used once in a few years. Hu Sihai's outbreak is absolutely terrifying. For the sake of the demon race's dignity, he has to fight with everything he has. Yes, this is for the dignity of our demon race. In the midst of the discussion of the demon race, Hu Sihai suddenly let out a roar, his voice rolling like thunder. Many people only felt a rumbling in their ears, and directly lost consciousness, falling to the ground and fainting. This was the might of an engravement stage expert, who had even activated the bloodline of an ancient divine beast. The might of a single roar was something that even an extreme bone stage expert would find hard to endure. Ling Han was shocked as he didn't expect Hu Sihai to have such a move. Why didn't you use it against Hong Tian steps back then? Yes, when he faced the Hong Tian steps, Hu Sihai's strength was too lacking. Even if he used this move, it would be useless. Moreover, at that time, it didn't rise to the issue of the dignity of the two races, so he didn't need to go all out. This time was different. He had the advantage in cultivation, and he was fighting for the demon race's dignity. If he lost to Ling Han, then it wouldn't be too much to say that he was a sinner of the demon race. If he didn't use his ultimate move, then if others found out about it in the future, he would be condemned by thousands of people. Therefore, Husihai had to go all out. Then let's see what was so special about the white tiger's bloodline. Husihai roared again and again, and with each roar, the aura he emitted became a bit more berserk. Gradually, the image of a white tiger appeared behind him. It couldn't be seen clearly, but it gave people a feeling that it was millions of meters long. Ling Han, in front of the glory of my ancestor, you can't even be considered a green onion, said Husihai. He waved his claw at Ling Han, and the image of the white tiger pounced towards Ling Han. It was too terrifying. The white tiger was a legendary divine beast. Even if it was just an indistinct image, it was still incomparably powerful. Ling Han didn't dare to be careless. He lightly shouted and used the demon monkey fist. His baleful aura surged, and an ancient demon monkey also appeared. A strange scene appeared. Originally, although this demon monkey's baleful aura was soaring, it lacked intelligence. But when it saw the white tiger, it suddenly became lively. A set of golden battle armor appeared on its body, and a rod appeared in its hand. It couldn't be seen what material it was made of, only incomparably complicated symbols could be seen on it. It stood there with its feet on the ground and its head in the sky. That iron rod seemed to be able to overturn the sky with just a slight movement. Not only that, but the image of the white tiger also became real. Its body was billions of meters long, and it was even larger than the sun. It filled the sky. The tiger and monkey images stood facing each other, as if they had traveled through time and space. This is. Princess Bai Xiao immediately became incomparably excited. She was originally sitting, but now she suddenly stood up. Her hands were clenched tightly, and her delicate body was trembling slightly. Oh, there's actually a trace of a connection that transcends time and space, sixth baby said in surprise. Although her cultivation level wasn't high, she had an innate ability and was proficient in spatial secret techniques. She was very sensitive to space. I can sense that a supreme will has appeared here from an infinitely distant space-time. No, it's two. Don't tell me that the monkey and the ancient white tiger who created this fist technique are still alive. It's already been tens of millions of years. No existence can still be alive. Yes, although these two wills are supreme, they are incomparably weak. It should be that the white tiger and the demon monkey were too powerful back then, and they were engraved with Tao marks by heaven and earth. Now that their bloodlines have encountered a secret technique, heaven and earth have reacted. That must be it. Sixth baby nodded as if she was trying to convince herself. The demon monkey suddenly moved. It raised its iron rod and struck at the white tiger. The white tiger met it head-on and swung its claws at the iron rod. It was clearly just an image, but when the tiger claws and the iron rod collided, a terrifying wave of murderous aura surged. Bang, 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 bang. Everyone fell to the ground. Except for three. Ling Han, Princess Bai Xiao, and sixth baby. A pale yellow halo appeared on Princess Bai Xiao's body and condensed into the shape of a monkey. It looked somewhat similar to the demon monkey in the sky. She was able to resist the attack of the murderous aura not because she was at the secret-seeking realm, but because of this halo. Ling Han was completely different. In his body, there were billions of planes, and every living being had their own will. This one will was naturally nothing, but when the countless living beings in billions of planes combined, it was powerful enough to resist the attack of the murderous aura. Sixth baby wasn't even in this space-time, so how could she be affected? Reading on the phone was more refreshing. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.